James Harden is back at it again with the Philadelphia 76ers. I made a video not too long ago talking about how I didn't understand exactly why Philadelphia had to trade away James Harden, how it made sense for them to maybe wait this out, see if he would return on the one-year deal that he opted into. But now things are getting to the point where this is just an untenable situation for Philadelphia, and it's really unfortunate and potentially a disaster for a lot of different reasons. So first and foremost, let's talk about the rumors. The rumors at the moment are that the relationship between Harden and Daryl Morey is not repairable, and he is committed to playing somewhere other than Philadelphia this year, more specifically with the LA Clippers. It seems very similar to the Damian Lillard situation where there's no reconciliation. He wants to go to one specific team, and as a result, it's probably going to take a while for him to get to that team. Now, I can understand why maybe Harden feels that way because of the way the contract negotiations went, but ultimately all that stuff is his fault. He could have had the big contract in Brooklyn and then requested a trade, didn't do it. He could have had a big contract in Houston, then requested a trade, didn't do it. And he just hasn't been as good. He hasn't been as great a shape since he's been in Philly. He's been fine, but not as good as he was in those two stops, and that's why his contract value is lower. And the concerning part if you're Philadelphia is Harden has done this before. We've seen him sabotage a situation with multiple different teams just trying to get his way out of the first time Houston and the second time Brooklyn. And so similar to the Ben Simmons situation, unfortunately for them, like they might just be in a situation where they have a guy straight up refuse to play. And that's a really dangerous place for them to be, because now we're getting some like Joel Embiid rumors about, hey, I want to win a championship, whether it's in Philadelphia or somewhere else. Like we're starting to get Embiid saying publicly, considering maybe some other options outside of Philadelphia. And at a certain point, if you're Embiid, you do have to look at this and think, how unlucky can one superstar possibly be? He just won the MVP award, by the way. Like he's been trying to win this award for years. It's been a goal of his very clearly, and he finally wins it. And they're 2 games away from making the conference finals, or 1 game away, excuse me, from making the conference finals, and they fall just short, and now things are falling apart around him again. And it's at the point now where like, I feel bad. I feel bad for Joel Embiid. And it's not even that Philadelphia is necessarily doing anything wrong. Like a lot of times if a superstar requests a trade, it's because, you know, they let this player go, they made some bad moves, they didn't put a good enough team around him. They've put a good team around Joel Embiid, but unfortunately the 2 guys primarily they've paired him with were Ben Simmons, who quit and left, and James Harden, who is in the process of quitting and leaving. And it doesn't really have anything to do with what the organization did. Yes, they could have done things better with the Simmons situation. Doc Rivers could have not come out and said negative things about Simmons after the playoff series against the Hawks. They could have just won that series against the Hawks. That would have been nice, and Ben Simmons might still be on the roster. They could have handled the James Harden negotiations better, potentially made sure that they had him and not have him force a trade out of there. They could have done some things better, but it's just a really unlucky string of events for a player in Joel Embiid that deserves better. And again, normally when you say that a player or a superstar deserves better in terms of requesting a trade, it's because the organization did something wrong. That's not really what's happening. It's just a really unlucky situation, because now we're getting to the point where if Philadelphia really doesn't want to trade Tyrese Maxey, which I don't blame them, but let's just say that what is being reported is true, which is that Daryl Morey does not want to trade Tyrese Maxey for anybody, including Damian Lillard, then what's the outcome here? Because if Harden's just not going to play, and you're not going to get a Harden replacement, aka Damian Lillard, by trading away Maxey and some stuff, you get some wings back for Harden. We've talked about that before. If you're not going to do any of that, then what option do you leave Joel Embiid at this point? Because are you really going to go to him and say, we don't have a good Harden deal, we don't want to trade Tyrese Maxey, so remember that year that Ben Simmons just didn't play and it was you and some other guys just running around out there trying to win 50 games? Yeah, we're going to ask you to do that again. I know you just won the MVP. I know you desperately want to win a title. I know you want more postseason success, but we're going to ask you to grind through a regular season and put the team on your back again without a legitimate star counterpart player, because that guy is just refusing to play and we're refusing to resolve the situation. Can you really go to Joel Embiid and say one more time, hey, let's do that again? Because at a certain point, you do have to be concerned about him looking at the situation and saying, I can't do this anymore. And I know I don't have that many years left because I'm a bigger player and injuries and stuff, big guys just decline quicker. I'm going to go elsewhere. And we're starting to get some of those vibes. I'm not saying it's going to happen this offseason. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I am saying that it's very clearly creeping into his thought process how unfortunate this series of events has been in Philadelphia. Now, the only counter to that you could possibly make is if you really believe in what Tyrese Maxey can be as a player, and you think that rather than trading for Dame, Tyrese Maxey can be that all-star level player alongside Joel Embiid. And if you get some complementary players in exchange for Harden, then you have a group that is focused around the Maxey Embiid combo. You stagger those guys, you have all the complementary players, and that is good enough to get you to the finals. I'm not saying that's false. I think Maxey can improve a lot. I think he can be very good, and I think there are circumstances in which Philadelphia can trade James Harden for stuff, keep Tyrese Maxey, and make a push for the finals. That's mostly because of how good Joel Embiid is. But my concern is Embiid hasn't been as good in the postseason as you'd want him to. You're constantly dealing with possible injury issues, and you're one sprained ankle, one sprained knee away from another lost season for Embiid. But then the other point to that is, if that's where you are, then why would you continue to mortgage your future, aka Tyrese Maxey and more draft picks, to trade for someone in Lillard that even if you do get him, if you have the Joel Embiid injury issue thing again, or he doesn't perform super well in the postseason, you're not getting to the finals anyway, and now you're in an even worse position because you have no future. What I'm getting at is this is an impossible situation for Philadelphia. Unless they can find a way to convince James Harden to return or find a solution to their star problem, whether that be Tyrese Maxey really improves or they trade Maxey in exchange for a star or some miracle James Harden trade shows up. This is a problem without a solution at this point if you're Philadelphia. That's just how it is. And I really don't know what they're supposed to do about it. And I would be very, very concerned about the future of Joel Embiid in Philadelphia if I were them. And if I was to blame the Sixers organization for anything, I guess it would be not handling the contract negotiations with Harden incredibly well, because I don't think they anticipated the opt-in and trade request is a real option for Harden. I think that they looked at the situation and said, whatever the Houston or San Antonio or whatever offer is out there, we have to just beat that. We don't want to be on a long-term deal with Harden 4+ years, but we gave him like maybe a 2+1 or a 3-year deal that's comparable to what some of these other teams out there were offering him, and he has to choose one of those options. And they didn't anticipate door number 3, which was the opt-in and trade demand, and that might be the end of the Joel Embiid era in Philly. Like, that decision-making process to not just bite the bullet and bring back James Harden on a deal that you shouldn't bring him back on, but if it means retaining Joel Embiid, then it means retaining Joel Embiid. Maybe that's the mistake that they never should have made. And maybe that's the reason why Embiid leaves. And maybe you could blame them for Embiid leaving based off that one decision. But it's pretty incredible that the two guys they tried to surround him with, the only thing they could have done really would have been maybe to pair him with Kyrie. Like, then that would have been the triangle of all three of these guys that just are quitting on their basketball teams. It's pretty incredible that Simmons and Harden both, for no real reason, just decided to no longer want to be a part of the Sixers organization. And I'm hopeful that there is a resolution here because I want to see Embiid be successful in Philly. But if not, the Knicks, the Clippers, Miami, all these teams are going to start circling, and Joel Embiid could be that next guy. He could be that next guy that requests a trade because they just cannot get things figured out in Philadelphia. Now, if it comes to that, if they start to get that feeling, the organization does, then I think your stance on Tyrese Maxey starts to change. Then maybe you do go make the Lillard trade. You do trade Harden to the Clippers. Whatever you can try and do to retain Joel Embiid, because the minute that he requests a trade and you trade him, this era of Sixers basketball is over, and you're a rebuilding team again, and you went through the process basically for nothing. And so if they start to get that indication, I would expect them to be much more aggressive in the Maxey trade market here. But ultimately, like I said, this is pretty much an impossible situation for them.